Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everyone to the class and to my section of the class, and we will be teaching a lesson about Chanukah, some idea which relates to Chanukah. So the idea of Chanukah, we know that Chanukah has been set up via the miracle of Chanukah has been set up via candles, and that of a Chanukah lighting the lamps of a menorah. So we need to understand with the establishment of the establishment of the idea that we celebrate the festival of Chanukah.
I'm not going to listen. No, I'm just going to get rid of him. I don't want to share.
That we establish the miracle, and that we celebrate the miracle via the menorah. We find that this is a difference to the other miracles that we commemorate in the Jewish religion. For instance, example on Pesach, the miracle is about, and what we commemorate is about the different events which happened at Yetzias Mitzrayim. And what we do with that in the celebration is that we eat matzahs, we do something physical, we eat a meal, we eat matzahs to celebrate the going out of Egypt, and that's the aspect of Pesach. Purim, it's also, we do something physical. It's called Yemei Mishta v'Simcha. It's a period of simcha and of food, of drinking, eating and drinking. And that's again because the exile and the miracles that happened were something which were related to a physical entity. The people at the Jewish nation at the time of Purim were being threatened with a physical exile, a physical death, and therefore the celebrations were done via something in a physical manner. That was a celebration of and being saved from a physical exile. Even more, in Mitzrayim, when they were in Egypt, they had to work b'chema u'levanim. They had to work with mortar and bricks, with cement, and the times of Haman, because the Haman wanted to bikesh lahashmit u'shlolam lavuz. He wanted to destroy all the Jews on the one day, take all their property, take all their assets. But in Chanukah is totally, the miracle of Chanukah and the story of Chanukah is very different. When the Chanukah is in a time when the Jewish people lived in their own country. They were living in their land. They weren't exiled and pushed away from another place. But so what was their exile? What is the festival about? The festival really of Chanukah is about that there was an exile, or there was a threat against them, but this wasn't a physical threat. This was a spiritual threat that they had. The purpose of the conquerors, the people who were controlling the Jewish people at the land, they had a specific desire, like we say in the prayers of Chanukah. We say, "Lashkicham teirasecho." They wanted us to forget the Torah. There wasn't a physical enslavement of the Jewish people, but there was a spiritual enslavement. They wanted lashkicham teresecha. They wanted us to forget Hashem's Torah and lahaviram chukei retzecha, and they wanted to go against all the chukim ratzanecha, all the mitzvahs. So what in celebration of the victory over the ones that wanted to threaten us from the religious point of view, for the religious persecution. The same, our Chachamim established a festival with a specific activity, not a physical activity, but an activity which had to do with neiros, with candles, to celebrate a spiritual release from our enemies, the spiritual Yeshua, the spiritual salvation, by lighting something which represents the spiritual aspects and the release from the oppression in relationship to a spiritual oppression, so spiritual bondage. Therefore, we have the idea of a candle. And why a candle? Because it says in Mishlei, the idea, it says, kiner mitzvah, the light of a candle, the light of a lamp, mitzvah, that is a mitzvah. But Torah and Hashem's teaching of Torah, it is light. And this is the path which we are to walk on. Therefore, we can understand in general that our sages established, they were masaken, that we celebrate this release from oppression via something spiritual in a spiritual manner, which is something which relates to the idea of our spirit via the ner, via the candle, and via the Torah, the right? And that represents Torah and mitzvahs. Now, we can understand this pasuk that we said, this pasuk where we said a mitzvah l'ner v'Torah l'er, this idea that we compare a mitzvah to a candle and the Torah to er, we can understand this when we think about a mashal, a analogy. When you have a candle, we call normally a candle, but we give it another adjective. The candle would be a candle which is an oil candle, or it might be a wax candle. So it's referred to ner shel shemen or ner shel shaiba, a wax candle or an oil candle. And we do this, and the reason why we call it like that is because even though we've got a candle and we've got the oil or the wax, one isn't good enough without the other. That even though there is oil and oil burns or wax produces, the oil or the wax can't directly produce a fire or a light. And in fact, if you had a fire and you put it into oil, it would go out straight away. But when you build it together, when you put the two things together, the oil and the candle, the wax and the wick, when those go together, then what we do have after that is that we have something which is possible that the oil becomes, when it's lit, is got a flame, and that flame of fire is drawn out because of the actual wick, and then you only need a little bit of oil to come out and it can light up. And we see also that the main thing that's driving is not one or the other. Without the oil, but if you just have a wick, you can't have fire. And if you have just oil without the wick or without thing, everything goes out. It doesn't go out. So you need to have the two together. Same also with that posuk that we described. Everything with the mitzvah, we need to have the ner mitzvah but Torah. We need to have them both together, even though a mitzvah is the commandment of Hashem, it's the Ratzon Hashem. And the Ratzon of Hashem is something which we can't understand in a complete way. We can't understand sometimes when a person wants something really why they want it fully, right? It's just something that they want. And so also we can't fully understand Hashem's mitzvah, but through the wick and through the Torah, right, and the mitzvah, through the mitzvah and the Torah combined, we just like the wick draws out the oil or draws the wax so that it can be consumed and make a light. So also from the Torah and in its extended wisdom, the Chokhmah, which is in Torah, the Chokhmah, which is in Torah Sheba'al Peh, we can understand the Torah, and from the Torah comes out the wisdom. And this wisdom and understanding of the Torah is only really to explain and to some aspects of the Torah, but we can't necessarily understand the full thing. So just like the main component of a lamp or of a candle is specifically for the purposes of the oil, so the oil will light up, but even if the oil doesn't directly produce the fire or light, but it's the entire thing together, the Torah and it's the Torah, the air and the wick, which is the mitzvahs, they come together and that draws out the oil through the wick, so we have light. So the mitzvahs themselves, even though the mitzvahs themselves we don't understand, but with the wisdom of the Torah, which explains the idea of the mitzvahs properly, we'll be able to achieve the spiritual light and fire, which the parts of the Torah draw out and want to teach us. So this idea of the drawing out, we can understand in a little bit further when we think of how we do our davening. Now remember that our davening represents the activity that was done in the Beis Hamikdash, in the real Beis Hamikdash. And in the Beis Hamikdash, there was a menorah. With the menorah, there was oil and there was candles. There was a wick, which we call a ner, and the placement of the air. And the activity, the avodah of lighting up the candles, that was done by the Kohen. Now the Kohen came in, and it says, the pasuk says, that every morning the Kohen had to come and to light up. The Torah and you have to light up the lamps of the menorah, and then the lamps of the menorah allowed him to do the next section of the avodah, which allowed him to do the Torah, the burning of the incense. Now, when the Kohen did that in the morning, and the pasuk which relates to do it in the morning uses the expression "Ba'beker heitivo." Heitivo means to make it better, to make the flame better. But he actually used to light it up. But the pasuk uses the expression heitivo, which means to improve or to light up. And that references what he does in the morning. They used to do exactly the same thing in the afternoon, in the afternoon of the service, and the time of the end, the mincha period, with the pasuk says, "Bahalois Aaron es haneres bein harboyim yaktirenu," that Aaron fixed up the candles bein harboyim, which means mincha time, so that you should also be able to do the keteras. So it's interesting. In the morning, we use the expression "Behetivo," it's improved, for the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, and for the afternoon, we use the expression "Bahalois," that he's going to light up, lift up, bring up the fire. Why do we have those two expressions? We have these two expressions because they teach us two different things. It teaches us about the way we light up. We light up the menorah, but why does the Torah use the two different expressions? So we have to understand that these two expressions describe the Bnei Yisrael in some sort of way, their activity. Just like the Kohen did the Avodah, and part of the service of the Avodah is to light up the menorah and light up the candles. If we understand what that means, or what the symbolism, what is the symbolism of the lighting of the menorah and the candles, we can learn a lesson about ourselves and what we're supposed to do, and specifically about Chanukah as well. So we have an expression that the Knesset Yisrael, that the Jewish people, the Knesset Yisrael is called Nikra B'Shem Menorah. We find that the Knesset Yisrael, that the whole body of Israel, all the Jewish nation, right? The Knesset Yisrael, when everybody's joined together, they're called the menorah. And where do we find that they are called in menorah? Dafka in the Haftarah, which we're going to read on Shabbos, in the Haftarah, there'll be of Zechariah will mention that the idea of the menorah, this idea of the Jewish people being compared to a menorah, teaches us that the activity which happened to the menorah, we have to, in some ways, copy and do for ourselves. In what way are the Jewish people like a menorah? And specifically, why are we like the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash? Because in the Beis Hamikdash, the menorah was muksha. It was made, when it was initially produced, it was made out of one piece. This teaches us that the whole Bnei Yisrael, that all the Jewish nation is really one piece, because everyone is together. All of Israel and all of the Jewish nation are all biyachad. They're all ba'achdus, and specifically into the eyes of Hashem, when Hashem looks at the Jewish people, he looks at them as one group. And that's the idea of the menorah. The menorah was built from one solid piece of gold. And that specific piece of gold was shaped into the form miksha. It was made into ba'achdus, and if it came a separate part, that wasn't kosher for the menorah. It had to be mukshad as one. But we also know that the menorah had 7 branches, at Shiva Neras. And that idea means that all of the Jewish nation, the entire Shishu Riboy, the 600,000 of klolistic neshamas, the general souls, and each one of those subdivisions, how it is in our generation and all the previous generations, we all derive from those original 600,000 neshamas, as explained in Tanya and Chassidus, and all those 600,000 were embedded in the 70 neshamas of our forefathers, of the Jewish people, which was the Bnei Yaakov that went into Egypt. There were 70 souls, and each one of the 70, what is 70? 7 times 10, because there is, in the idea of midos, of characteristics of people, 7, and each person's got 10 sfirot in their 7, so that's 7. Says 7 times 10, 70, and that 70 became the 600,000. But that's all referred to the Shiva Neras, as we see an expression that the Shiva Neras, that the Bnei Yisrael are called the Shiva Neras of the menorah, so that the whole Jewish people are compared to the 7 branches, to the seven branches, the 7 lights on the menorah, and we know that every different person, based on the shorish of the neshama, of his connection to neshama, depending on which of the 7 midas he comes, can do service to Hashem and light up the world in his way, in his or her way. He lights up the world in the way of seven. Who is the one who lit up the menorah? It is the Kohen, and in fact, it was Aaron who was the one who lit up the menorah. Aaron is the Kohen, and he was the one who served Hashem L'Kel Elyon. And in fact, he is Meshiva Ra'ayim. He is one of what's called the seven shepherds, which give Mafanas or Mashpim. They are of the seven shepherds, which the purpose of the shepherd is to give the flock. The purpose of a shepherd is to feed the flock what the flock needs, the sheep what they need. So also the shepherd takes the flock and takes the sheep and finds them the right places where to eat. So also it is the role of the Kohen, the Isha Chesed, to take the Jewish people, the seven Neiras, and comprising of the 70 neshamas, of the 600,000 Yiddish neshamas, and to feed them what they need in order to be able to light up their menorah, to light up their own souls, to light up themselves. The Kohen lights them up, and the Kohen lights up the menorah at two different times, one in the afternoon, Bein Arboim, and one in the morning. And we use two different expressions for that. And that the idea of the Kohen lighting up at the two different times shows us a path where we have to light up ourselves, how we can light up ourselves in a way to serve Hashem. The purpose of Aaron, Shushbina de Malka, literally called the escort of the queen, is the one who acts like Hashem's queen. Hashem being the king, and he has a queen, and Aaron as the shepherd helps the menorah light up, which is the Jewish people, and how they can connect to Hashem. And Aaron is the one who helps us to go up spiritually towards Hashem through the service of prayer. How do we connect? We connect at the time of our davening, morning and the afternoon. That is the time of tefillah. And what does the tefillah do? The tefillah lights up our own neshama in a way of ahava, in a way of love for Hashem, so that we can connect to Hashem in a way just like the flame, to jump up and to be strong and to connect that flame, to connect to Hashem in a desire to leave its wick and connect to Hashem, so that the light by itself comes so that the light can rise up by itself. But at first, before it can do that, it has to be ignited and it has to be turned on. So and we have to make sure that we enable those lights through the Eir of Torah and through the mitzvahs that we do. And when we do that, we fulfill the mitzvah of Ahavta, of loving Hashem, when we do that Shema. Now it says that a person of his own accord in physical, he can't always fulfill everything unless he can't make that lighting up of himself without the help of Hashem. And this is one type of lighting, a nighttime sort of lighting, and then there is a daytime of lighting. We'll examine that in a minute a little bit more. We said before that there's two types of lighting. The Aaron, the Kohen, in the morning does Oilot, and in the morning he does Hativu, he makes it better, and in the nighttime he does Oila. So the pasuk says that on the Mizbeach, there comes a flame of Hashem, and that flame of Hashem lights up the Mizbeach and shows the presence of Hashem. Nevertheless, it's a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah that the flame should also be done and also be attached to the korban by man. That's a halacha. That's what happened in the Mizbeach, that a fire came down from Hashem, but nevertheless, also the people that are serving on the kohen had to put that flame. There's a very special teaching in that the love that we have in our own heart, and that love eats up the Yetzer Hara's desires to do negative. There is a flame which Hashem gives us, but there's also a flame that we have to bring to the flame. There's a fire that comes from above, and there's a fire which comes from man. And that the two, even though there are two types of fire loves, one is a gift, a matana from Hashem, and one comes through man effort. The Hediot, the ordinary person, he brings the Ava that he sees in the world. He brings the Ava that he does and he works on through his davening. And through his davening, when he thinks about the words in his prayers, when he says the Kriya Shema, and he says Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusa La'olam Va'ed, and he wants to connect through the Shema by saying the Hashem is one, Yochid, and he's connected, and he feels holy. So that is him bringing his own flame to Hashem. He's connecting to Hashem. And when a person comes to does the meditation and thinks about how we can be close to Hashem, it gives him a flame and he lights himself up. That's his level of coming to Hashem. Then Hashem responds to him and he helps him and he gives him also a light to enable him to go further. So Hashem also contributes the light from above to the man's love, to the human being's love that he has. And through this, his his lighting up of himself, this causes then a light from Hashem to come down on him. And this and helps his flame, his own flame to come higher and higher and achieve a level of connecting to Hashem even higher than what he can do, what he has done himself. And this help also comes from the help which is from the level, the spiritual level, which we call Aaron Kohen Gadol, which is the level of Aaron in the heavens, which is a level of Chesed, which helps us burn. And this idea, the idea of V'ahavta, of loving Hashem, the love which we bring to Hashem, and the love which Hashem helps us go, this is understood with a hint in a gematria that the V'ahavta, the words of V'ahavta, is based ba'amim it's equal to written twice, because there's the light which you bring, and there's the light of Hashem which we bring, and there's the light of Hashem which Hashem gives us, and therefore this is the higher type of light. This connects to the pasuk that we were talking about before. The higher side, the higher level of love which Hashem gives it, that happens. That's the idea of Hetivo, improving, bringing and lighting up the menorah. What's the Hetivo? Is the improvement of the menorah. So the menorah itself lights up. So Hashem gives us the goodness and kindness from Hashem, and that allows us to improve and go and make better. That is to say that that Aaron, Hashem's unlimited kindness, makes our menorah, our love for Hashem, even deeper and stronger. The other one in the evening, that's deliberately the idea of the love of Hashem, which is alois, bringing up the fire. We have to bring up the fire that we do, but this empowers and this gives the power to the Jewish people that we are able to arouse this love through our own effort during our own davening, and we lift up ourselves. But alois, the word means to lift up. So when we make something go up, we're making it go up, and we connect to Hashem. So in the simple translation, this flame which we're lifting up, which Aaron lights up in the evening. What is the evening? When it's a little bit dark, when we have darkness with ourselves. This is the Bein Arboim. Bein Arboim is the time of when it's between daytime to nighttime, when there's darkness all around. And the Chanukah menorah is what we light up ourselves. We deliberately light up the menorah at the time when it's spiritually dark, and we bring light into the world. But then Hashem gives us a corresponding expression that when it's spiritually morning, that when it's the midas of Avram, Isha Chesed, who in the morning when there is light, that is the idea that Hashem gives us a spiritual awakening. And so when a person can lift himself up, he brings light, and that's the babika in the morning. But the question, let's go back to our mitzvah. How does a person able to achieve that? And that's through the idea where we said kiner mitzvah. A mitzvah is a light, and the Torah is and the Torah is light. So therefore, when a person does Torah and mitzvahs, he becomes a light, and the mitzvah draws out of the person themselves. The doing of the mitzvah is like the oil, bringing out the oil, and that the mitzvah comes from this high level and transforms into a source of light. And therefore, and even though we don't necessarily understand all the detail of it, but by doing the mitzvah, we draw out the light, the from Hashem, and that is the idea of the candle. The candle is the mitzvah, and this draws the light of the Torah. And this is the analogy that we've used. This is the idea of the oil, that that the oil itself is not the one which the oil itself is not exactly the one that's burned, but when it comes together, when it's made a connection with the wick, with the candle, the Torah and the when they all come together, and we draw from ourselves and we put in ourselves, we also get in response from Hashem. We can make we make the light for ourselves, and that's the two levels of the morning and the evening. In the evening, when we fight against the areas of darkness and bring light, we light up within our neshamas the connection to Hashem. Our menorah, the menorah of Klal Yisrael, light up to Hashem, and in Baboiker and in the morning, Hashem responds to us by giving us the light. And this is the idea. This is the idea that when we connect to Hashem and when we do something active, we draw down. We're activating the holiness within ourselves that Hashem gives us, this love, and we connect to Hashem on the highest level. So it's Dafka, the menorah, which represents the Jewish nation, and it's Dafka, the Kohen, which and the avo, the love to Hashem, that we break through the darkness of the Golus, and we draw down Hashem's connection. So it was Dafka because of this that the idea of the Ner, that our sages instituted the celebration of Chanukah via the idea of candles and via the light of all of the connection to Hashem, because this connects to Hashem in the highest, most beautiful way.
Yishkoyach.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was good.
Very good.